My name is Cinda Baxter. I'm the owner of Details, Inc., fine stationery, invitations, and gifts in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to be your host as we ride the elephant in the room, the internet. And this particular segment, we're going to talk about staying clear of the dark side, otherwise known as how not to step in the potholes with the elephant. Basically, you want to be careful so that when you take these initial steps to get your web presence together, you don't make mistakes that are going to blow up later on. As a cautionary tale, a retailer that I know from the East Coast hired a web designer to come in and build a great website for her. She didn't know where to begin, so the designer said, I'll tell you what, I will register your URL, I'll get everything set up, all you have to do is tell me what you want on the site. Great. So that's exactly what they did. The designer went out and got the URL, got all the billing and everything set up, built the site, took longer than expected, finally got the site up. There were problems with the site. The retailer had to keep going back saying, this part's not working, this part's not linking, what's happening? And before long, the designer basically flaked out. Work wasn't getting done, the designer had a fit, picked up their jacks, and moved on. And along with him went the website. One day, with no prior notice, they were down to no site. And when I talked to this particular retailer and asked her, well, have you talked to your host? She admitted, I don't know who the host is. I said, well, who are you sending a check to? Who are you paying? I don't know. The designer took care of all of that. Essentially, it's the equivalent of buying a new car but handing the car keys to a total stranger saying, you take care of this, you take care of the title, you fill in all the paperwork, but when I need the car, I'll just trust it'll be there. You can't do that with a website. You've got to protect your investment. When you buy your URL, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to buy it from an independent source unless you're working with a host that's very, very well known and very highly regarded. You want to be sure that you're the one making the purchase. Even if you know nothing about how to run a computer, at least sit down in front of it with someone that can and make the purchase yourself. Worst case, pick up the phone and call the host and do it verbally. You want the account to be in your name, on your credit card. Billings coming to your address, nobody else. You want to be sure that you set up a separate email account for whoever is going to maintain the website long term, whether it's your designer or somebody else that's a webmaster, and I'll explain the webmasters a little bit later. Whatever happens, you want to be sure that the emails that are coming into your store accounts aren't also going to your webmaster as well. Some of those communications can be a little private. A lot of the things you say with customers, you don't want to have a third party in the room for. Be clear with your designer about who owns the copyright to your site. You want to be sure that you retain the copyright, which means that that design won't be used on any other websites or for any other clients. Same with your photography. If you're taking pictures or a friend is submitting pictures, make sure it's clear that you own the copyrights on those. If your vendors are submitting things for you to include, they'll have the copyright on their images. Sometimes vendors will ask that you put the copyright next to their logo if you're using the logo, or maybe a footnote on a page. A good example is we have a page on our website that features envelopments, and envelopments requires that that copyright footnote be in place. So if you scroll to the bottom of that page, you'll see the copyright text. You want to be sure that you own a copy of the software that your web designer is using. Now, I know that sounds crazy, especially if you've hired a designer because you don't know how to do this yourself. But the bottom line is if there's ever a time that you need to make an emergency change, or if you have someone on staff who can maybe make a change, you want to be sure you've got the keys to the same front door. Quite often you can use other software. It's just good to know just in case that you've got that on hand. You want to learn to use this software as much as you can. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to learn how to build pages from scratch. But if you want to change text frequently, like say for instance on your home page, you're always going to feature a monthly special, rather than have to pay someone to go in and just type new words into place, maybe that's something that you can go in and do yourself. Software has gotten remarkably easy over the years, especially if you go with one of the Adobe packages. They partner with a company called Total Training, it's totaltraining.com, that provides training discs for all of the Adobe software. That might be a good place to start if you feel like you want to invest some time in educating yourself on how to actually fly the mothership. So anyway, that's the information for this first section. We're going to jump in a little bit deeper and get into does the shoe fit to see how you can do a little bit more homework. Again, my name is Cinda Baxter. Thanks for watching and sit tight. We're going to be right back.